The U.S. and Iran are expected to return to the negotiating table this Sunday for a sixth round of talks in Muscat, with major sticking points still unresolved. The two nations have been engaged in 5 rounds of indirect negotiations since April, aiming to reach a nuclear deal. However, following the 5th round, the U.S. proposal offered by Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff was criticized by Iran for lacking crucial terms. In response, Tehran has pledged to submit what it called a reasonable, logical, and balanced counterproposal to Washington. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a 40-minute phone call primarily focused on Washington's ongoing nuclear discussions with Tehran. Amid these developments, how will Tehran respond to Washington's latest proposal? And will the 6th round build on the cautious progress made in previous talks, or could it open the door to a potential military solution? That will be our discussion today on In Depth. I'm Halal Hamalawi. Stay tuned. Ahead of the 6th round of talks in Muscat announced by Iran's foreign ministry, Netanyahu and Trump held a 40-minute phone call shortly after Iran stated that it would soon respond to Washington's latest proposal for a nuclear deal. According to the Times of Israel, Netanyahu's office confirmed that Trump told him the United States had presented a reasonable proposal to Iran and that he plans to hold another round of talks with Iran over the weekend. Speaking to reporters at the White House, Trump described this conversation with Netanyahu as very well. He added that the U.S. is trying to make a deal with Iran so that there is no destruction and death, acknowledging that the Iranians are tough negotiators. When asked what's blocking a deal, Trump replied, "They are just asking for things that you can do." Referencing Tehran's demand to retain uranium enrichment capabilities, he insisted that he would not permit this, despite elements in the latest U.S. proposal that temporarily allows limited low-level enrichment with Iran.
As core issues remain unresolved from prior talks, Tehran and Washington are gearing up for a 6th round of nuclear negotiations this Sunday in Muscat, Iran's foreign ministry announced. Since April, the two sides have engaged in 5 rounds of indirect discussions aimed at reviving a nuclear deal. Following the latest round of talks, U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff presented a new proposal, which Iran criticized for lacking evidence, reflective of prior negotiations, and announced plans to submit a reasonable, logical, and balanced counterproposal through Omani mediation. The primary point of contention remains Iran's uranium enrichment program. Tehran insists its right to enrich is non-negotiable, while Washington considers it a red line. Amid these tensions, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. President Donald Trump spoke for 40 minutes following Iran's announcement of a forthcoming response. Netanyahu later held a security meeting focused on Iran. The Prime Minister's office confirmed the call included discussions of the ongoing negotiations. Trump reportedly told Netanyahu he had made a reasonable offer to Tehran, despite Netanyahu's threats to strike Iranian nuclear facilities. Trump said he has held him back for now. Trump noted that the upcoming talks may determine whether a diplomatic resolution is still possible, potentially averting military escalation, with stakes rising and diplomacy under strain. Round the deadlock or push both sides closer to the brink.
The question remains, and delving more into this joins us from Cairo, Mr. محمد Khayri, researcher in Iranian affairs, as well as Nurhan al-Sheikh, political science professor. Welcome to Q News. And I would start with you, Dr. Nurhan. How do you view Trump and Netanyahu's recent call on Iran? Was this timing strategic in your own opinion?
Good evening, Hala, and thank you for having me with you. Actually, what Trump proposed, and he's trying to stuck in peace with Iran. I think this is or a point of disagreement between Trump and Netanyahu. Since the early beginning of discussing such Iranian deal, etc., I think there was a wide gap and widening gap between the two. Netanyahu insisting of a military strike against Iran and still insisting for that. From time to time, Israel and Netanyahu mentioned some plans for such strikes, and it seems that Trump refused totally that, at least in the short run. He is trying to give time to peace and to reach some deal with Iran. And he is obviously insisting of that because you know that he didn't got some success in Ukrainian issue, in Gaza as well. So I think for him it will be very needed to some deal with Iran, and at least for sure will be a point or an issue for disagreement between the two.
Dr. Muhammad, as Washington awaits Tehran's response, what key elements might Iran's promised logical counter-proposal contain, given, of course, its insistence on uranium enrichment?
Greetings to you at the outset. Iran is trying as much as possible to maintain its ability to enrich uranium, as per to the international community does not criminalize any activity of uranium enrichment inside any state, or to agree with the United States on a certain percentage of enrichment on its own soil. Iran is trying as much as possible to reach an agreement with the United States to maintain the uranium enrichment, even with the lower percentages compared to the 2015 agreement. So Iran is trying to maintain this right, because they have the National Day on the April 9th to celebrate nuclear day, technologies day, and there are some trends, and the Iranian leader stressed that this is about the Iranian sovereignty, and that's why Iran is trying to maintain the complete right of the uranium enrichment.
Dr. Nurhan, you said that Netanyahu is trying to push Trump to a war on Iran. And now, speaking of this, when asked about the recent call with Netanyahu, Trump added that he described it as it went very well. To what extent the two leaders truly aligned on avoiding military action against Iran?
With Iran, the tension will get over. He will be out of. So he's trying to not to calm escalation, wars, and vice versa, relating the tension and getting more and more fronts for wars. Because Gaza may be calm today or tomorrow or whenever, but Iran would still continue. So that will grant him to be or to continue in office. I think that is completely different from Trump trying to do, because with Iran. And I think he realized that pressures or on Iran will be useless. It will not working as the expected in Washington. So he's trying to have a different approach, have some success to maintain Nobel Prize for Peace for him, and to enhance some good reception for Trump and his administration in the Middle East, and also to, by a way or another, to calm Arab Gulf countries' fears about Iran. So there are many push factors different totally from that of Netanyahu. I think they have two completely different stances, at least in the short run. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows what will happen later on in negotiations. Maybe if he failed to get some gains from Iran, maybe he would change his stance, and this is normal, or it is not. It's okay for Trump to change his position, to change his stance. No problem for him.
Exactly. It happened before many times. Dr. Muhammad, Iran has criticized the U.S. proposal as lacking elements from previous negotiations. So what specific concessions would Tehran require to seriously consider a deal?
The negotiations always have concessions. When Iran talked about concessions, they requested the United States very clearly to lift the sanctions partly and completely. And on the other hand, they compromised and accepted the enrichment to lower the enrichment percentage and just suggested selling the enriched uranium to Russia or China and to go back to the 2015 agreement or maintain the Iranian ability to enrich by 2% to 3%. These were the negotiation terms set by the United States, and it's to be discussed in the next round of negotiations.
Back again to you, Dr. Nurhan. Trump claims that Iran wants, he said, things you can do. Now, what exactly does he mean by things that you can do, and what realistic concessions could Washington actually offer that would satisfy both sides' core requirements?
Trump offers something he considered as realistic and a chance for Iran. Because early beginning, Israel and the United States maybe called for dismantling the program, the nuclear program of Iran. But now he is allowing Iran to keep its capabilities under one condition, not to have the right or to have the capability for enrichment uranium. And he proposed, or Washington proposed, some regional center for enrichment the uranium for Iran and other countries which have ambitions and to have some nuclear capabilities for peaceful means. So he is trying to propose some regional center for enrichment uranium, and he considered that as a very good opportunity and proposal for Iran. Mm-hmm. Vice versa, Iran refused that totally and said that it is not logic. It is not. It is if or Iran doesn't have the capability of enrichment. So all its nuclear program, from their point of view, useless. And the insisting to have the ability for that. So plus. There is a lack of trust between Iran and the United States because Trump offered investments, offered projects, released some sanctions over Iran, but Tehran doesn't trust the United States. Mm-hmm. And doesn't trust that will come true. So the United States proposal is unacceptable. Actually, they introduced some two phases. Phase one is to reduce Iran to reduce its capabilities of enrichment of uranium to 3%, which is nothing for the Iranian, and then that to establish that regional center. That's completely unacceptable from Iran, and they insisting to have the capability of enrichment. Plus, that report from the IAEA concerning that what Tehran has now is the ability to produce approximately 8 nuclear pumps. And that uranium and its capabilities of enrichment uranium allow it to produce 8 nuclear pumps, very recent. Iran refused that and say that its program totally peaceful, and there is no one sign that it started to produce. But actually, they are talking not that it is started to produce, but that it has the capability.
The capability, exactly. Yes.
So the problem is the capability.
The potential to actually enrich uranium. Dr. محمد, how does Iran's insistence on uranium enrichment, as we're speaking, as non-negotiable, right, align with its broader strategy of maintaining leverage in negotiations while at the same time seeking sanctions relief?
In fact, maintaining the right to enrich uranium can be supervised under the IAEA, and this agency can actually supervise the stages of phasing out the uranium enrichment and the secure, safe enrichment in the context upon by Iran and the United States. Iran is trying to leverage some pressure by maintaining a high percentage of enrichment and not allowing supervision on the nuclear areas inside Iran. They are relying on these factors to reach some agreement with the States as pressuring core to reach a general context based on which they can reach a final agreement. Iran has a true will to reach an agreement if the United States shows good intentions, with the IAEA announcing the supervision of the Iranian the processes of uranium enrichment and reaching safe and secure
offers more inspections from IAEA and transparency concerning its program, and to have some kind of step-to-step to have inspection, more transparency. In return, it's expected to release some of the sanctions from the United States, maybe Europe. But I think the pressures now over Iran, I think it may matter because you know that if they put Iran under Chapter 7, according to a report from under Chapter 7 from the UN, it may face the same fate of Iraq. So that I think it may also be putting into consideration, but up to the date it introduced or to keep its right and its capabilities of enrichment, and to have just more inspections and transparency concerning.
But I want to stop here, Dr. Nurhan, because I think that Iran is going into these negotiations with a more firm and strong stance than Iraq used to do at the time of Bush. I mean, this threat, I can see that Iran is acting with more power despite the sanctions and despite the threats. What do you think in that concern?
Yes, I agree with you, because you know that first of all, Iran is not Iraq. Iraq at that time was totally or nearly
vulnerable country.
Yes, exactly, and isolated from the Arab countries, from the whole world. But Iran has its allies regionally and as well as internationally, has its own connections, trade. So its economy is facing problems and difficult, but still strong. Its regime, although all what we are saying, administrations, etc., but still also, I think they have powerful enough to stand against Washington. So the situation is totally different concerning Iran, comparing that
to Iraq. Yes, Dr. Mohammed, given Netanyahu's repeated military threats, how much influence is Israel exerting over U.S. negotiation strategy, and could this pressure lead to a harder American stance? Could Netanyahu actually pressure Netanyahu to go into war against Tehran?
In fact, the war matter is extremely unlikely for different reasons. Trump does not want to get into war with Iran, and that's why he's seeking to reach an agreement.
I believe I lost contact with Dr. Mohammed, so I go back to you again, Dr. Norhan. How does Washington justify its what it calls red line on uranium enrichment while reportedly offering temporary concessions?
This is a double standard of the United States. We use it in many other situations. And you know that United States doesn't want Iran or any other country which is not affiliated to the United States from having a nuclear technology, enabling it to produce nuclear weapons. And actually, United States didn't share nuclear technology except with Britain in the 50s, and lately when it introduces the nuclear submarines to Australia a few years ago. So it is also trying to limit such a spread of nuclear technology in general. So I think United States and Trump, I will talk about Trump, he is in a little bit a dilemma, and other institutions disagree with him and with what he is doing with Iran, maybe close to Netanyahu in his thinking about Iran. So I think he needs to reach a deal, a good deal with Iran, but the good deal for the United States will not be the same for Iran for sure.
Yes, but I want to elaborate here, Dr. Norhan, because the uranium enrichment impasse continues to dominate the negotiations. Iran calls it non-negotiable, and the United States deeming it as red line. Is there any viable middle ground that could actually break the deadlock?
This is what they are talking about, the regional center for enrichment of uranium. But I doubt that Iran will accept that also, because where will be that regional center? The state will host the regional center, will be dominant, of course. Even it is not the one who is running the center, but at least it hosts the center. Yes. Maybe if they agree that that regional center will be in Iran, running by United States or other countries, maybe at that time Iran maybe accept such a solution. Yes. But I doubt that they will do such thing.
Yes. I'd like to thank my guest today, joining us from Cairo, Dr. Norhan al-Sheikh, political science professor. Thank you so much. And Dr. Muhammad Khayri, researcher in Iranian affairs. Thank you also for sharing your fruitful insights. And that concludes today's episode of In Depth. I'm Hilal Hamalawi. Thank you very much for joining us, and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.